Hello, welcome to your astrocartography reading. Today I will be focusing on a personal astrocartography reading request. And for those of you who don't know, astrocartography is basically combining which is astrology, with cartography, which is the study of maps. So it's basically something where you can input your information and you'll generate a map as you can see before you, something like this. And then based on these lines that are on the map, we can see what energies a person will deal with um, if they go to these different locations. And this person is asking specifically for what areas would be good for relationships, especially long-term relationships like marriage, for instance. Um, and anyone who wants more information on astrocartography itself or how to get a reading such as this one, I will put that information in the description below. But as for as for your relationships and long-term marriage and things of that nature, this was fairly straightforward. I will explain how I got to the answer I got to. There are some specific areas of the world that do point to the focus being on relationships and marriage. And I did want to say before I get into this that, of course, you could have a happy relationship anywhere. So I'm not denying that at all. And it's more just that there are some certain areas of the world where that would become like the big focus. That would be the defining theme of that area for you. So I'll get into that now. So first we'll talk about the good places that you should go to, and then we'll talk about some like maybe kind of iffy places that kind of just depend on what you're looking for. And then we'll go to the absolute no places. Do not go to these certain places because they would mm, be more likely that you'd be dealing with more darker themes and difficult, challenging themes involving relationships. So first, for the good places to go to, the this was pretty straightforward. So you were asking about relationships. So you can see these. The lines are labeled beneath at the very bottom of the screen, and you'll notice each one has a planet glyph and then two letters by it. So, for instance, it'll be Moon MC or Moon DC or what have you. For you, since you were talking about relationships, the descendant, which is DC, DC means descendant. The descendant has everything to do with relationships, compatibility, marriage, and all that. So this was a no-brainer. I definitely wanted to look at the DC lines, and looking at places that would be positive for you, I wanted a benefic DC line. So the benefics would be definitely Venus and Jupiter, especially, but also the Sun. So pretty much anywhere you would be near a Venus, Jupiter, or Sun DC or descendant line, you would experience positivity, growth, abundance, desire, attraction with relationships. So that would point to easy, graceful, positive experiences with relationships, and therefore higher probability of more options romantically, or better options romantically as well. So where are these lines? I will show you. So first, the most notable region I found would be Eastern Asia. I know that sounds kind of random, but there's the Sun descendant line, as you can see here. So this would mean that you'd naturally gravitate toward people that are having traits of the Sun. So they would be warm and expressive and outgoing. They'd be very generous and inviting. They'd probably make the first move with you. They'd be very kind of exuberant people. You would just attract that energy, and that would be the energy of your relationships as well. So definitely some good stuff. These energies are generally very warm, vibrant, positive, and you would experience this in kind of these offshore islands of Eastern Asia. So Indonesia, specifically Java and Borneo, Eastern Malaysia, the Philippines. And for your convenience, I'll write all this down. I'll have it in the description. So don't worry about trying to memorize all these random locations. But basically, Indonesia, the Philippines, Taiwan, South Korea, maybe Japan, like these southern parts of Japan, but mostly South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. That would be one kind of set because that's the sun line. Another line near here actually would be let's see here. Where is it? The Venus descendant line. So this is kind of a no-brainer as well. Venus is the planet of love and romance, attraction, desire, pleasure. So of course, who wouldn't want to have that on the descendant? So living near your Venus descendant line, you would attract people of that energy. So people that would be polite, courteous, pleasant to be around. People that may be not only physically attractive but also just attractive in general. They would attract your energy because it would be easy to be with them. And then again, that energy would define your relationships as well. Your relationships would be more concerning desire, attraction, pleasure, really harmonious stuff. There's not a lot of downsides with this type of energy. So this Venus descendant line you can see here in dark green. It's hard to see because it's right next to your Saturn. It looks like you were born with Saturn conjunct Venus, and so your Saturn line is right next to your Venus line. I'll talk more about what that means in just a moment. But the Venus line is hard to see. It's dark green. Don't confuse it with this light green line. That's Mercury. But there's a dark green line right here, and it goes through Burma, or I guess it's called Myanmar now. And then it goes through central China, eastern Mongolia. So again, it goes through Asia. It's just kind of more inland Eastern Asia, I guess you could say. So when I say China, it's not so much these like outer cities like Beijing or Hong Kong or whatever. This would be more like Eastern, or excuse me, like central China, like right through the middle, and then Eastern Mongolia. So I don't know how adventurous you are if you want to pack your bags and go to Eastern Mongolia, but that is another line that would show positive, experiences with relationships. Now, I did say it's right next to the Saturn line, so that is kind of interesting because it's a Saturn descendant line. Typically, I wouldn't say to go near a Saturn descendant line for relationships. It's not a deal breaker necessarily, I wouldn't say. It's just it would make, especially the beginnings of relationships, it would make a little bit more tedious. Things would take a lot more time to develop. They may be a little bit challenging or delayed at first with the relationship. So, um, so definitely not the most fun energy. But once you would kind of gradually build a relationship, then it would be very strong. And combining this with your Venus line, I'm only talking about this because your Saturn and Venus descendant lines are pretty much together. They're pretty much conjunct. So if you were in like central China or Myanmar or Mongolia, your relationships would start out slow, but the Venus would be there as well. So there would be that positivity and desire, but also that gradual energy of Saturn and maybe some challenges early on. I would still look to that line for sure. Venus is still powerful enough, and Saturn is technically a malefic, but it's not necessarily all bad. Like I said, it would be kind of an investment, but once things would develop, you'd have something really powerful and strong. You'd have a very strong foundation built up. So that's definitely nothing to discount as well. So I don't know how you feel about Asia, but a lot of these regions for you are in Eastern Asia. There is one other area for you that really stood out to me. Um, and that would be the Jupiter descendant line. So we looked at the Venus descendant line, we looked at the Sun descendant line. Both of those go through Asia. The only other benefic descendant line would be the Jupiter descendant line. So you can see here in pink, it's Jupiter DC. And unfortunately, it mostly just goes over the Atlantic Ocean. It goes over the Atlantic. It goes almost within range of the tip of Brazil, but I don't think it's quite close enough. Um, and plus, if you were on this tip of Brazil, you'd be closer to these other lines, to Mars, Neptune, North Node, even. So, I mean, there'd be a lot of other energies you'd be dealing with, and you really wouldn't be very close at all. Um, so I don't think I'd count that. But what I would count would be the Azores. I don't know if you've heard of those, but they're islands that are part of Portugal, but they are kind of off in the Atlantic here. You can see here they're kind of these little dots right there. But they're beautiful islands to go to. So I don't know if you wanted to visit the Azores, but they would be within range of your Jupiter descendant line. So so Jupiter, so that would mean you'd have the energy of Jupiter, not only with the people you'd attract, but also with your relationships themselves, with the very nature of your relationships. So it would be people that are very expansive and adventurous. You'd have very adventurous relationships, very adventurous people you would just attract. And not only would this apply to, romantic partners, but also just people you would attract in general. People who are very optimistic, very I don't know, always seeing kind of the good in things, the good in people, people who are adventurous and outgoing. You may attract like business type people, people that are involved with traveling very far or business. That would make sense too in the Azores since it's sort of a vacation destination, I believe. Otherwise, the Jupiter descendant line also goes through Greenland. I just don't, there's not a really whole large human population in Greenland, so I don't know how much luck you'd have there, but I will write down the Azores. So basically, it's Eastern Asia, Central China, and the Azores looks like. And going to the maybe areas, and again, I know these locations are kind of random. Again, you could of course have a super happy relationship outside of these areas, but again, these areas is just where that they're just where the main focus for your life would become about relationships and attraction. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you want to go to Asia or the Azores, but that's what I would say. As for these kind of maybe areas, there's one line, I know you live in the United States or you're from the United States, so I did pay particular attention to that area. And there is one line that is sort of, all in all, I would say it's neutral for relationships, but it would make the focus about relationships. Now, whether that focus would be positive or negative sort of depends on your preferences. But I just thought it would be worth pointing out. So this would be the moon descendant line. Um, let's see if I can get these letters back. They disappear when I zoom in on the screen. So the moon descendant line, let's see. I know it goes through. Yes, it goes through the kind of the middle of the continental United States, and it even goes through Alaska. Moon descendant line is blue, so moon DC. It goes up through looks like southern Mexico, like I don't know. I know where the Mayans are from. I don't know what that area is called now. And then it goes through Texas, kind of the Great Plains region. I'm just gonna call it that. I think like Oklahoma, Kansas, and then Wyoming, Montana. Through a lot of Canada, like looks like Alberta, I believe, and Yukon, and then up into Alaska. So, okay, so what does this mean? What would you experience there? So in all those places, kind of the middle of the continental U.S., southern Mexico, you would have moon descendant lines. So, you know, so again, the planet would be coloring the people you attract and your relationships, but in this case, it's the moon. So, moon is the planet of emotion and of sensitivity. So you'd be attracting people that are very sensitive, very nurturing, maybe very kind of soft. They may be a little bit clingy. So again, if you're a person who likes that, if you want someone who's more emotional, more sensitive, someone who's more creative or intuitive, this would be, a set of regions for you. If not, though, if you want someone who's more independent, you don't like clinginess at all, you don't want someone too sensitive, then I would say to avoid these areas if you're looking for a positive relationship. Um, it's just because, even if you start a relationship with someone who's generally not clingy, it's like those kind of traits would be brought out if the two of you are on your moon descendant line. It would make the very nature of the relationship more emotional, more sensitive, more cyclical. With the moon, there's always cycles and changes, so things would be more kind of fluid. So all in all, the moon is not considered a benefic or a malefic. It's just kind of neutral. But I thought I would just point that out because, again, depending on your preferences, you can either go to this place or maybe avoid it, just depending on what you want. Now, as for places that I would say absolutely just avoid these places, don't go to them. There's really two in mind, and they're kind of off the wall, kind of random. So one would be Australia, and not all of Australia. Now, if you wanted to go, like most of the cities of Australia are on the east coast, like Sydney, Australia, for example. If you wanted to go to Sydney, that would be totally fine. Um, the area of Australia that you should avoid is mostly unpopulated, so you probably wouldn't go there anyway. I just thought I'd throw this out there, but your Mars descendant line I would avoid because it would mean being on your Mars descendant line, you would attract people that are very aggressive. You may attract violent people, or there may be violent accidents involving your relationship. So whoever you're in a relationship with may have a violent accident or something of that nature, or be kind of more irritable or aggressive or competitive with you. Um, Now, even this, I mean, if you were someone that was just like super testosterone oriented and you were like, I want somebody who's super outgoing and competitive and a daredevil, then yeah, I would say go to your Mars descendant line. But generally speaking, for most of us, if you just want an easygoing, stable relationship, um, then I would say to definitely avoid this line. So this would go through Central Australia and then Western Papua New Guinea. And again, what are the odds that you would really go there in your life? Probably pretty slim anyway. But if you were like way out in the outback, um, and you meet someone, yeah, maybe just be extra cautious because they might be abusive or something. And then this line does go up, but it goes mostly over the Pacific Ocean and then through Kamchatka. You have like all of your lines pretty much intersect in this area of Kamchatka. So I don't even want to begin to explain what you would experience there. It's really hard to tell, but um, anyway, so back on track though. The only other area I would say to avoid would be your Pluto descendant line. Pluto is another malefic, and um, it would make you paranoid with other people, and it would also make you attract people that are really crazy and intense. There'd be a lot of really intense events happening with people that you would attract, and your romantic relationships especially. Now, I personally have lived for many years on a Pluto descendant line. I can say from experience that all these things are true, and I would not recommend living there, especially if you want a stable, happy relationship. Now, for you, this line mostly goes over the Pacific Ocean, so that's pretty good. It does go over Alaska though, so I would say, and if you were gonna go to like Anchorage, Alaska, that would be okay. It's not really within range. But as for like western and northern Alaska, I would say to avoid those places. Again, what are the odds that you'd go there? Probably pretty slim, but I'm just saying, don't expect a stable relationship in those areas. It does kind of curve around, but I think it becomes the ascendant line over here, so it doesn't really pertain to your relationship so much in Western Africa. So that's what I have for you. So I want to pan back out over Asia since that's really my final answer. Whoa. Yep, this this is my answer. I don't know how you feel about that, but so in short, areas for a happy relationship for you: Indonesia, Japan, Philippines, South Korea, Central China, and the Azores. Places that kind of just depend. You'll experience those more emotional themes: Texas, southern Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Montana, Wyoming, Great Plains region. And then areas to absolutely avoid are western and northern Alaska and central Australia. So, so I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about this. But that's what I have for your astrocartography pertaining to your relationship uh, probabilities. So yeah, and if anyone else is watching this, if you'd like a reading, just email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. You can also go to manicmercurian.net for more information on all my readings, including these astrocartography readings. Okay, great. But thank you for watching, and thanks for this opportunity to look into your astrocartography. It was definitely very interesting, and I'll talk to you guys later.